telemedicine, which is absolutely miraculous. Like, people are so afraid that it would not be good for the doctor-patient relationship, that it would be unsatisfying, and the data shows quite the opposite, that it's very good for the doctor-patient relationship because we're just looking at each other instead of my back to you, like on the stupid EMR, right? I get the chance through telemedicine to talk to my patient face to face and get to see them and their full expressions without this in the way, right?
Hi, Dr. Periman, thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you this evening. I'm going to ask you now just to introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks so much for the invitation to be here. It's really awesome to be here with you. Thank you, Polly, and to the rest of the Vision Care Connect team. I really appreciate the opportunity. My name is Dr Periman. I'm an ophthalmologist in Seattle, Washington, and I am a cornea and refractive trained dry eye specialist. And we now have a practice where all we do is advanced dry eye care. We're in Seattle, Washington on beautiful Queen Anne Hill.
Oh, so your background is very appropriate.
Yeah, this is just an hour out of Seattle. I was snowshoeing a couple weeks ago with some friends, socially masked and distanced, of course. Wow. And beautiful hike up to Hyack Lake. And on the way up, there were no bobcat tracks or cougar tracks. And on the way back, there were two. So the kitties were stalking us.
Do you take something with you? Like, don't they have a spray? Or?
Well, the cats are shy. They're not going to attack you. But I'm really glad I didn't bring my little dog, because I mean, not have turned out so well. They're like, ooh, wow. Snack.
I don't know that I would be that brave, but you're brave. I can see you doing that without a.
I'm crazy.
No, you're not crazy. You're not crazy. You're a pioneer. You're a pioneer in this industry and in your life. I want to ask you a question. I sent you a few of the questions, but I want to ask you, what do you think is the biggest problem facing ophthalmology today?
Oh, wow, that's a big question. What is the biggest problem facing ophthalmology today? I think it's the corporatization of medicine is the biggest problem facing ophthalmology today. And by that, I mean the erosions of practicing with autonomy in the context of big box groups, private equity acquisitions, also the health insurance companies and their arbitrary and capricious, artificial, time-wasting, unnecessary, non-medical denials and prior authorizations and appeals. Yeah. Can I tell you how I really feel about it?
Yes, you can.
I'm being polite right now.
I love that description. I've heard it before, and I truly appreciate it, being in the industry as long as I have. And I think we spoke with someone last week or this week, I don't remember, who said, I remember the days when we were really reimbursed for our time and our expertise and our knowledge and the risk we were taking, and now we're just reimbursed
on a good day.
Yeah.
if you cross your T's and dot your I's and don't pass gas in church, then you might get paid.
It's true. It's true. Gosh, I love it. I love it. On that same note, when you were talking about that, what would you say to the millennials and the Generation X's that are trying to hang their own shingle right now?
Oh, wow. So I'm very encouraging for new ophthalmologists and seasoned ophthalmologists to go ahead and go solo. Try the private practice thing. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors and urban legends about how hard it is to open your practice. And I bought into that narrative for a long time. I'm like, oh, I don't know enough to own my own practice. Well, you can learn it. If you're smart enough to get through medical school, you can learn how to operate a business. And it's a steep learning curve. I've made mistakes, no question, but give it a try. There's nothing quite like working for yourself. And the freedom and the latitude you have in making the decisions, because doctors do have excellent judgment and we do have the patient's best interest at heart. And the best way to achieve that is to be the one making the policies as the leader of your group.
I love that. I would say if you love your patients, they'll love you back, right?
Yes, we pour a lot of love into our
Mhm.
patients.
And you started your dry eye practice in the middle of COVID. Is that correct?
I did.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I thank you for asking about that. So, with the shutdown, a lot of doctors were furloughed, and I saw that as a sign from the universe to go ahead and leave the safety of the group and the nest and go ahead and venture out on my own. So that's what we did. Uh, it was a natural breaking point, and I'm so glad I did it. Somehow, that forced quiet time at home, I was working crazily trying to get this thing organized off the ground, like all the things you have to do to start a business.
Mhm.
But it was time well spent. It was weird because the forced shutdown gave me time to do those formal things I need to do to get a business set up, educate myself on how to run a business. What does this tax structure look like? How do you set up your bookkeeping? What EMR am I going to pick? But I had the time. I had the time to do it, so I worked a lot during the shutdown, as did the rest of my family. My 13-year-old wrote a sci-fi novel, and it's going to be published next month, and it's awesome.
I
My
have to know the name.
18-year-old was that?
Yeah, you have to send me the name and the title.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Uh, and yeah, it'll be out soon, so you can look for that. The My older girl, she started a volunteer program called Students Helping Students Seattle, and she saw all this unmet need during the shutdown. She was like, "Oh my gosh, what are kids doing? Their parents are first line workers. They're having to work. Like, how are they continuing on with their online schooling?" And she was very concerned about that. So she started this volunteer organization where she matches families with students that need tutoring and high school volunteers. And the most commonly requested subject is math. And she's matched almost 400 families at this point, and it's all volunteer. She's helped other kids in other communities set up their own volunteer tutoring program, and it's just been a really cool way to stay connected, see a need and fill it, make a difference. So I'm just really proud of both of them.
Well, they had a good example. So,
I'm not a tiger mother at all. Like I'm just like, hey, if you want something, you got to work for it, because
you don't
I'm
have
not
to
just
be,
going to give it to you.
you lead by example. You lead by example. I'm always a big believer in, what I say matters, but what I do matters more. So I love that. I love that.
Well, the kids were a little annoyed at me because I've been wanting to start my own clinic for years. Like, Mama, when are you finally going to do it? When are you finally going to do it? Like, oh, I don't know. I'm scared. I'm worried we'll be working too much. It'll be time away from you guys. And they're like, we're big girls now. We can handle it. Go do your thing.
Go for
So I
that.
did. And they're like, we told you so, Mom.
Now they can say we told you so instead of you
They
saying
can say we told you so.
that's great when the shoes on the other foot. My mother's 96 now, so I can finally say that.
Oh,
You so, Mom. Yeah.
that's adorable. That bodes well for you. 96. That's a good sign that you got some good longevity on your side.
Keeping all my fingers crossed. Let me ask you a question. Who or what has influenced you in your life the most, would you say? Tough question.
Who or what has influenced me in my life the most? Um, mm, I'm going to tell you a story about this phenomenal attending physician I had in medical school. His name is Dr. Douglas Powell, Paaauw, internal medicine teacher at University of Washington, where I went to med school, and truly the most, I'm going to say, enlightened doctor I've ever come across. This was at the peak of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, right before we had heart therapy for HIV patients. And these amazing patients would come in with, severe late stage diseases. And he would just always treat every single one of them with respect, dignity, compassion, and a a resolve to keep trying things, but also the love and compassion to sit with somebody when there really wasn't anything left.
Wow.
So he's my greatest influence as a physician. I'm getting a little verklempt talking about him because he just
Love it.
enormous respect for the man. Incredible, incredible human being.
But what a great influence to have in your life, to have someone who has compassion, empathy, and all of those things, and also
Yeah,
has the knowledge to heal if he can, and the want
yeah,
to heal if he has the tools. I mean, that's amazing. I love that. I love that.
yeah.
What would you say is your biggest lesson learned from COVID this year? Mhm.
What is my biggest lesson learned from COVID? Um, there's always a silver lining.
I love it.
If if you're handed a bushel of lemons, you cut, you squeeze, you add water, you add sugar, and you stir.
I
That's
love,
what I've learned from COVID.
love it. I think I've talked to a lot of people who just want to do things like they want to live again. You know, they're like, I don't want to now. I realized in this year that I've worked so hard. You know, this year slowed me down enough, like you. It slowed me down to realize what I've missed or what I've longed for.
Mhm.
And what are the things outside of your practice that you do and you love and you've longed for and you've had time to cherish this year and do more of?
Me?
Yeah,
Um, I've been writing a lot of poetry.
really.
And yes, I had two poems published this fall, which is really cool and special and meaningful. And the publisher asked to see all my other poems, and that'll be published this year as well.
You have to send me all these names and titles. That's awesome.
the the um the name of the poetry collection is going to be the place where stones smell glorious. Because I'm a Montana girl, right? I grew up on the Continental Divide, and just by chance, a raindrop can end up in the Pacific Ocean or in the Atlantic Ocean just by chance if you're on the Continental Divide. And I just have always found that to be amazing and poetic. Um, so that's why it's a line from one of my poems, "The place where stones smell glorious."
You have great insight. I love that. I love that. There's a lot of compassion in you, Dr. Periman.
Thank
Well, I want to
you.
end this by asking you one thing. And we've asked every doctor so far this question. So we're loving the answers that we're getting. How have you seen technology in ophthalmology transition since your career started? And what do you foresee technology being in the industry or transitioning the industry to come?
Oh wow, the arc of technology over the top of my specialty. Well, I'm going to date myself, but this girl dates back to the days of paper charts.
So do I. I raise my hand.
High five. And there's nothing wrong with paper charts.
I love
Um, yeah, the whole push towards EMR on a theoretical premise of enhanced efficiency, enhanced patient safety, and enhanced patient care hasn't really borne out. It's nothing but a dead weight around our ankles. Like, it slows me down. It's note bloat. Like, in order to check all the boxes for compliance, you put a bunch of garbage in there that doesn't need to be there. Used to be, glaucoma follow-ups took up that much space on a page, and now you've got pages and pages of this stuff. Now I'm super tech appreciative, tech savvy. I've got a good AMR, it works great. But it's still a problem. I found that I had to adjust my thinking and my approach to the patient in response to EMR, and I kind of resent that, because it should be quite the opposite. It should be the EMR serves how I think and interact with the patient in addressing their issue and their problems, rather than trying to force it around some arbitrary set of corners, if you will. I'm not very flexible, as I still can't touch my toes, but I'm not a contortionist. I wish I were, but I'm not. But I'm happy to, be flexible and work around things. But I've also leveraged the technology that I think was given a huge push in COVID for telemedicine, which is absolutely miraculous. Like people were so afraid that it would not be good for the doctor patient relationship, that it would be unsatisfying. And the data shows quite the opposite, that it's very good for the doctor patient relationship because we're just looking at each other instead of my back to you, like on the stupid EMR, right? Um, I get the chance through telemedicine to talk to my patient face to face and get to see them and their full expressions without this in the way, right? So and I can help prepare them mentally about what to expect, and their anxiety is lower and the interaction's more fruitful. So it's like there's so many layers of good. In fact, just last week, telemedicine was an utter save, home run case, new onset or long long history of dry eye irritation, chronic, acute exacerbation of the right eye, 2 days prior. I'm like, and their appointment wasn't for another couple of days. I'm like, that's kind of weird. So we moved the telemedicine up, and the history, you would not have known what the actual problem was. But 30 seconds into the telephone video call, I saw what the problem was. It was an acute onset Bell's palsy, which is where the facial nerve becomes paralytic, and you have this blunting of the nasolabial fluid. This flattens out, and this happens, and the patient can't do this. It's very weak.
And you saw that.
And oh my gosh, completely. It was actually a little bit subtle. I mean, but as soon as I asked him to, I saw what was going on, and that's the reason why I was irritated. Asked him to raise his brows, and it was symmetrical. And that I said, you know what? I need you to just hang up and go to the ER. This could be something happening in the brain. We have to rule out some stuff going on acutely. And that's a save. And I wouldn't have gotten that far with just a telephone call. But seeing what was going on, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what this is. And this could be very serious. Time to go.
I love I think
total win. 4 minutes into it, I'm like, okay, we're done. It's like, we need to send you.
I agree. And a lot of people would say, well, how can you diagnose dry eye over telemedicine? But it's not diagnosing
amazing.
Dry eye. It's diagnosing symptoms. And the patient, I would say, I would love to do this as a clinical research. Take patients' blood pressures in your office when they come in, and take their blood pressure in telemedicine when they're sitting in their home.
Ooh, that would be really good.
You're so
heart rate and blood pressure. Yeah.
That would be so fun to see the difference and how relaxed the patient is. You already know you get more information when they're sitting in their home than you do when they're in the office. But imagine what that is. Yeah.
Right. No, it's super cool. And then you asked me, where do I see it going? I think it's going to continue to evolve, and I pray for increased efficiencies. But because of the big COVID push, I've been able to start this new institute with a skeleton crew, a lot of virtual helpers, and it's all these amazing apps. Jotforms, love it. All these telemedicine platforms, Doximity, Advanced Ocular Systems, can't believe I'm blanking on the name of the one in California, blue and white logo. Oh gosh, it'll come to me in a second. I just had my second COVID vaccination on Sunday, and I'm still recovering from that. Yesterday was rough. I Care Live. Thank you. I knew I'd come up with it eventually. I Care Live.
It didn't totally get it.
So all of those amazing platforms are just going to continue to evolve. And I see the technology facilitating some independence, some much needed independence from the evils of health insurance companies. Did I say that out loud?
No.
They're not our friends.
They are our friends, but sometimes they're our enemies, just like our families. So it's okay.
It's like crazy Uncle David at the Thanksgiving table.
The insurance company. Well, I sure love having you with us this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. And you're such a beautiful, sweet, intelligent, amazing woman. So Vision Care Connect thanks you so much for joining our program, Focus Through the Generations. And I can't wait for all this to be put together and you can have it and see it.
Oh, I can't wait either.